Okay, and we are now recording part 2 of episode 3, talking about the spring equinox and lycanthropy and rituals. Abby just finished their portion, and now we are going to have Conjure Cutie do their portion.
Yes, hi. My portion is going to be folklore again. That's my favorite thing to do. I'm going to be reading from my phone, so I apologize if I'm not looking directly into the camera. And I'm also going to be doing a Greek goddess story again, so apologies for any mispronunciations throughout this entire story. Most witches utilize the spring equinox as a time for balance, renewal, and rebirth. Here in the Midwest, we usually start to see daffodils as a symbol of spring, which reminds me of the story of Kor/Persephone. The transformation of Kor into Persephone highlights the dual nature of the goddess along with the cycle of life and death. Kor, whose name means maiden in Greek, was the daughter of Demeter, the goddess of agriculture and fertility. She was a beautiful and innocent young goddess who spent her days in the meadows gathering flowers and enjoying the beauty of nature. Hades, the god of the underworld, watched Kor from his dark realm. Enchanted by her beauty and purity, he desired her as his queen. Knowing that Demeter would never consent to their union, Hades devised a plan to take Kor. One day, while Kor was gathering flowers with her companions, she came across a particularly beautiful and rare flower that she had never seen before. Bum, bum, bum. It's a daffodil. But I want to pause because I prefer pink daffodils. I don't know if you knew that those existed, but they're beautiful. And there's other daffodils besides yellow ones, but I've only ever seen like yellow and white here in Indiana, at least when we've been, walking around in nature. As she reached out to pluck it, the ground beneath her feet opened up, and Hades emerged in his chariot, drawn by black horses. He seized Kor and dragged her down into the underworld. People view this differently. I'm just going to leave it at that. I'm just going to say that. So Demeter, upon discovering her daughter's disappearance, was overcome with grief and despair. She searched the earth tirelessly, neglecting her duties as the goddess of agriculture. As a result, the earth became barren and famine spread across the land. So everything died. Sad. Winter came about. After days of searching, Demeter learned from Helios, the sun god, that Hades had taken Kor to the underworld. Furious and heartbroken, Demeter demanded that Zeus, the king of the gods, intervene and bring her daughter back. Zeus is his brother, by the way. He was probably like, bro, what the hell? Literally, what the hell? But anyways, Zeus, recognizing the dire state of the earth, ordered Hades to release Kor, but only because, the earth was a shit show, not because his fucking daughter got stolen by his brother. That's weird. However, before leaving the underworld, Kor had eaten 4 pomegranate seeds, binding her to return for 4 months each year. This act symbolized her acceptance of her role as the queen of the underworld. Kor returned to the surface world, but she was forever changed. She had become Persephone, the queen of the underworld. Her dual identity allowed her to maintain the balance between life and death, renewal and decay. As Persephone, she spends part of the year with her mother, Demeter, bringing life and renewal to the earth, when she returns to the underworld, Demeter mourns and the earth becomes barren, leading to autumn and winter. And this cycle of seasons reflects the eternal balance between light and darkness, life and death. If you want to work with Persephone around this time, you can offer her bones, flowers, especially daffodils. And if they're live potted plants, even better. So you can feed them, keep feeding them. And you can offer pomegranate, honey cakes, mead, Malbec. Why not? Candle colors, you could do dark red, but for the spring, you could do pink, you could do white, you could do yellow. I sometimes, when I make my candles, I make candles, by the way, just for funsies, I'll do half and half. So for Persephone, I thought of doing like light down here and then a darker color up high. So that way, whenever you burn it, it goes from dark to spring to welcome the spring equinox. It's pretty cool.
Love that, by the way. Need one of those.
Thank you. But to talk about the spring equinox in general and what it teaches us, I pretty much learned that with death, there's always rebirth. When things die, new things get reborn. I can read you an excerpt actually from this book, Ostara. I don't know if it will focus. Hold on. Maybe? Oh, it's so shiny. I'm sorry. Anyways, it's a good book. There's an entire series of all the Sabbats, and you should just buy it. It's like $89 on Amazon, but it's great. So an excerpt from it says, "While the day of the equinox itself is about balance, it's important to remember that balance is fleeting. And the fact of the matter is true balance very seldom exists. Even on the equinox, depending on your location, night and day still are not completely equal. The farther you are from the equator, the bigger the difference between reality and equality. We can work to achieve balance and work to maintain it, but truly keeping balance stable is a difficult task. Since life and circumstances are constantly changing, the equinox is also not only about balance, it's the beginning of the triumph of light over dark, warmth over cold, and day over night. It is the beginning of new life." So anyways, that excerpt's pretty
that.
Good, I think. I think it's a good read, I don't agree with everything in this book. I mean, it's very Wiccan. I'm not gonna lie. But it's a cute book. It's very cute.
And sometimes that's all you need is just something kind of cute to get you through. You know what I mean?
A little cute,
Not every book you read needs to be some big, dry, scholarly tome that, it's the same for me with like media that I watch. Sometimes I want to just watch a brain rot show and enjoy myself. Like sometimes I just want to read a cute book. It doesn't need to be, Yeah.
Exactly.
The girls that get it, and the girls that don't won't. And I don't know what else to say about that.
Period. Oh, my quest. Is there a charm, spell, or craft we can make for the spring equinox? Spring cleaning, seed planting, both physically and spiritually, for both those things. Okay. Egg magic, you can do egg cleansing. You can bury eggs for an offering or even a hex. You can use eggs for divination. I was reading about this new method, which is in this book, by the way. It's called Umancia. I might be saying it wrong, but that's where you crack an egg in the boiling water and then read the boiled parts, essentially. Kind of. I'm not explaining it all the way. I think it's like you separate the yolk from the whites. I don't know. But it's cute. It's a cute idea. I like it. You can also do a lot of ritual baths. So I use river water, moon water. Abby talked about dark moon water, I think. I like all of those ideas. Whatever you use is great. But I still need to finish making my video about water. So hopefully I'll release that before this whole thing gets released. Hopefully. It's my first time ever, so please don't judge me. But maybe you can use some of those ideas.
And Widowy, for anyone watching this right now, if you go and you bully my friend Widowy, I'm gonna be so mad. Widowy. That's my friend.
Please. Don't be mean to me. I'll cry.
Yeah. In this document, we also have a little bit about the devil in gold. I feel as though for, witches within ATW, the spring equinox is also viewed as a really good time to kind of work with Lucifer, the returning of light and illumination. Our devil in gold comes to us during the spring tide and is our lord of blazing light. This is a time of illumination. The golden devil blesses us all with our psychic gifts and spirits to aid us in all of our oracular pursuits. So it's like a good time on the wheel to illuminate maybe some things that are being kept hidden or some secrets, or illuminate the truth out of a matter. Yeah, treasures once lost, now found. We are blessed by the eternal light of Lucifer, and you can check out, for a shameless self-promotion, Ambrosia's Book of Witch Flight to connect more with the devil in gold, green, black, and red. So yeah, throwing that out there. Maybe consider giving Lucifer a call this spring equinox and being like, hey, it's me,
Hello.
your boy. Yeah.
Hello, Daddy Darkness.
Yeah. Okay, so my quest is mostly focused on lycanthropy, which I know maybe some people watching this are like, Jasmine, what the hell does this have to do with the spring equinox? Well, I'm here to tell you. Okay, so shut up and sit down and listen, because I'm here to tell you. For one, when we were working on this, Conjure Cutie, me, and Abby the Witch, we were also kind of in a Lupercalia vibe. So you're going to be getting some Luperci vibes in this, even though it's a spring equinox. But there's also like the association of opening up gateways into the other world at the cardinal equinox and solstices. So otherworldly spirits, figure it out, do the math, made 1,000 million songs to make you shake that ass, or however it goes. You know what I mean? So let's get into it. Yeah, I guess mine was the art and craft quest that I did. Lycanthropy is a profound and often misunderstood part of craft, and this quest will have us exploring the concept of lycanthropy and various perspectives of it. So the prompt is to investigate how different cultures and religions view lunar possession, okay, and lycanthropy. Two separate things, often overlapped. And what are some common themes and differences with this? So some common themes that I found in my research are, of course, one, transformation, right? Across many cultures, lycanthropy involves a transformation, which is typically triggered by the full moon, thus like the parallel of lycanthropy and lunar possession. Duality, the concept of duality where a person has both human and animalistic characteristics, is also a reoccurring theme. And we don't just see this with werewolves exclusively. There are other sort of animal hybrid motifs. Fear and mystery. Lycanthropy is often associated with fear, mystery, and the unknown, which also kind of reflects some of like the subconscious fear around the unknown in the human psyche. And then sometimes also seen as a punishment or a curse. In some traditions, becoming a werewolf is seen as punishment or a curse, sometimes for immoral behavior, but also the opposite is true, where it's seen as a boon from a god, where you're being imbued with strength and power, maybe before a battle or some sort of event that would require such acts. So I have a list here of some cultural and religious perspectives for you. One being in just medieval Europe, lycanthropy was often seen as a curse or a result of actually pacting with the devil. Interestingly enough, pacting with the devil, giving you sort of lichen-like qualities. And we also have these really interesting illustrations of Christian monks as wolves, associating them with like being impure and being connected to the profane, and like kind of the whole connotation of like a wolf in sheep's clothing, a wolf among the flock. So I thought that was kind of cool. Look up like medieval wolf slash also sometimes fox monks. I've also seen them trending on my For You page, interestingly enough, lately. Slavic cultures. So there's a werewolf also mentioned within Slavic culture who was seen as someone who was cursed by a witch or by a sorcerer, basically laying that hex upon another person to curse them with lycanthropy, which I feel like, there's a lot we could pull from that. Like, what is lycanthropy to you? And why would you curse someone? And like, for what purpose? I'm not here to debate whether or not cursing is ethical or not for you. Okay. You need to follow your own moral compass. For me, I think that would be a great way to disrupt someone in a place of power by cursing them with lunar possession or lycanthropy to kind of surrender their mind into madness on a routine schedule of like a full moon. That every full moon, may this person just go completely in retrograde in all aspects, right? We also have some Native American beliefs. So now this concept, I'm going to use like kind of a code word here, because I know that some Native peoples have mentioned that even just using the name of the spirit is thought to draw it. And regardless of how you or I might feel about the validity of that, there could be people that are listening that do subscribe to that. So I will be mindful and I will be respectful. And so for the sake of this, we are going to call them skin dancers. Okay? That's what we're calling them. But the concept of skin dancers in some Native beliefs, I believe this one specifically here is from the Navajo. It was thought that they got this particular power by practicing like a very dark medicine, okay? Using the word here from the source, which I've linked down below in the document if you want to go check it out. You know how I feel about the paradigm between light and dark, associating that with good and evil. But in the stories, someone who practices like crooked medicine, right? Typically, they sort of get this power by committing a horrible act, like forcing themselves on someone, figure it out, do the math, specifically on a relative, and also unaliving them. I don't know if you unalive them first and then force yourself upon the corpse after. I don't know which order it goes in, but allegedly that's some of the stories, that skin dancers were medicine people that committed those acts. And then they got this power almost as like a curse for doing that. Or, that was the price that you had to pay in order to take on this power, where you could take on the skin of an animal. We also have some Chinese mythology. So while not specifically like werewolves, there is some folklore around shapeshifters taking on animal forms, just kind of broadly, typically women, magical practitioners, and some Chinese stories of taking on forms of like snakes or even sometimes almost kind of Naga-esque, like I've seen in some media. We also have some Japanese lore of like the kitsune. People probably are not going to necessarily associate that with lycanthropy specifically. Also, they're foxes. And they actually shapeshift into the form of like beautiful women but like their true form is that of this magical fox, and they can be benevolent or malevolent. They're not always associated necessarily with just evil. And we also have like some West African beliefs as well that we can pull from. Some cultures believing in like were hyenas and also were leopards, where individuals can shapeshift into the form of these animals, which is usually associated with some form of magic that's going on. And then I have some other ones here. So I've talked about this a little bit on my channel. I think we talked about it in another episode. I've been really diving into some French lore as someone who's exploring more of my own red soul and some cultural heritage sort of stories. I haven't really ever known much about my French side or even just French lore in general. And I have been so delighted to find this wellspring of witchery so deep within the French culture. Okay. Shout out to La Feuillacine. Okay. The Missy girl who kicked off the affair of poisons. Amen. Okay. The Missy girl who was leading black masses under the cathedral, allegedly, for entertainment purposes only. Amen. Okay. So we have the French loup-garou. The origin of the term loup-garou comes from the French word loup, meaning wolf. We also have that as like lupine. Okay, another derivative. And garou, or a man transforming into an animal, a wolf changer, basically. And this legend has deep roots in medieval France. This French folklore, the loup-garou, is a person who transforms into a wolf or takes on that form, and it's seen as a curse or a punishment because of their sins and their connection with the devil. Again, very interesting. And this transformation is seen as involuntary, which I think is a special distinction to make, because in some stories, they can shapeshift at will, like with some of the West African shapeshifters. But in this instance, it's a curse that is involuntary that they have no control over. Like clock strikes midnight, it's a full moon. Okay, Missy girl is covered in fur. I get it. I totally get it. Okay. We also have some remedies to this curse that's mentioned in some lore, where the loup-garou curse could be broken by a couple of different ways. So, okay, it's not a life sentence. Okay. Such as not speaking to the creature for 100 days. Can't talk for 100 days and no one can talk to you. Apparently that can break it, according to medieval French lore. Also, by recognizing that someone is a loup-garou and drawing blood. Go ahead.
I'm so sorry. I would love it if people would just stop talking to me for 100 days. So, like, it doesn't sound that bad.
And see, but you also couldn't talk to anyone else for 100 days, which in theory sounds great, but I also cannot shut the hell up. So I don't know if the curse could still be broken if I was talking to people on the internet and not like directly. Maybe I could survive that way, but I don't know.
I don't have that problem, but
there's also another remedy of apparently just drawing blood from the creature can cure it, which that seems like a really simple remedy. And why not just prick my finger so I can go out with the girls and not have to wait 100 days to talk to anyone? Just like prick my finger, let's get it out of the way. Like, you're telling me this horrible curse can be cured by one drop of my blood.
Well, okay. How much blood though? Like, is it really just one drop?
That's not super clear. So that's not super clear. So I can't deny or confirm. I also wasn't there, so I don't know for sure. But I feel like if it is just one drop, then maybe the French loup-garous could, in a way, make their curse voluntary by, you know, you go to the devil, you commit horrible sins, you know, you become a loup-garou where you get the power of turning into a wolf. Freaking cool. I'm a freaking wolf. You know what I mean? Enjoy that for as long as you want. When you're done with it, when you're done with it, call up your girl. Be like, hey, sis, I got a bottle of Pinot Grigio. Come on over. Prick my finger. You're done being a wolf. If all it takes is one drop, allegedly. And then when you're bored of just being immortal again, you just go back to the devil and be like, hey, Zaddy, I made a mistake. And then you get the curse again. Enjoy it for as long as you want. You know what I mean? When you're done, call up your girl. And by a prick of your finger, you're done. It's over. So really, I mean, who's the cunning one here? You know what I mean? Okay, we also have the French Cajun version. This is really particularly interesting because this shows how, folklore and these sort of myths evolve with the migration of people, because the loup-garou is like motherland French lore, right? But the rougarou is the Cajun lore that I'm assuming, since the Cajuns are the French immigrants of the Acadians who came down south. There's like 3 Catholic colonies: Maryland, Virginia, and Louisiana. Specifically in Louisiana, this would have been heavily sort of influenced by the native peoples and enslaved peoples mythology of the area, sort of changing what we know as the loup-garou into the rougarou. There's still a lot of similarities, though. So this rougarou is a variation of the loup-garou and is deeply embedded in the French-speaking Cajun communities in Louisiana and the other early Catholic colonies like Maryland and Virginia, like I said. Some characteristics of the rougarou specifically: it's a creature with the body of a human, but the head of a wolf or a dog. So there is one distinction there, because with the loup-garous, this is a full animal shift, but with the rougarou, this is more anthropomorphic. So it's human and animal qualities both. So you no longer can just turn into a really cute, Siberian husky looking girl.
So relating back to Indiana, when I was studying bridges and rivers and whatnot, there was a dog bridge monster who literally was a human who just had a dog head. Anyways, Indiana Midwest folklore for you. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, and here in Indiana, we have a good amount of some werewolf lore from our French and German settlers specifically. We have, I think Australia has talked about it before, where there's like a werewolf hollow, I think near Richmond, Indiana, that's like specifically really known for like werewolf sightings. Yeah. So there's some cultural significance as well, with the rougarou serving as a cautionary figure in Cajun lore. Basically, like, be careful if you're out in the bayou too late, or the rougarou is gonna come get you, honey. Used to instill like moral behavior and an adherence to cultural norms. Seen as a popular figure in like storytelling and festivals. Also, like these rougarous sometimes are seen within like Catholic lore. Basically, if you're out there in that bayou doing ungodly stuff, especially during Lent, then this werewolf man, he's going to come get you. You know what I mean? So as we are celebrating the Witches of Black Lent currently, I thought that this was kind of relevant. If you are interested in, having an encounter with a wolf man, now would be a great time to go do ungodly acts in a swamp near you. Obviously, that's going to attract this wolfman figure, and he's going to have his way with you, and that sounds horrible. You know what I mean? I would hate to be that girl, who does that. So some prevention and protection. Various methods are believed to protect against these rougarous, such as placing 13 small objects outside your door, because apparently the creature is illiterate and can only count to 12. Great way. Okay, if you're worried that, you went out in the swamp, you did your ungodly acts, he had his way with you out in the swamp, you're done. You know what I mean? You're like, baby, I'm going home. We got Taco Bell at home. You know what I mean? You don't want him to follow you. Place 13 objects on your front porch. He can't count. Problem solved, babe. Problem solved. Kind of like you just don't invite the vampire in. You know what I mean? They can't even come in, literally. This is fun. There's also, there's like the boo hag lore, where she's like this hag that comes in the middle of the night to come scoop your kids up and eat them or something. And if you don't want the boo hag breaking in your house, you're supposed to like throw grains of rice on your front porch, because she has OCD. And so she actually won't be able to enter your home until she counts all those grains of rice on your front porch. That's literally problem solved. Who needs a Catholic priest? You know what I mean? So yeah, some prevention and protection. Like I said, 13 small objects outside your front door. They can only count to 12. And that's apparently the folkloric law. So problem solved. Keep at least 13 or more trinkets on your front porch, like any good Cajun woman down in the South, apparently, and you'll be fine. Get you some wind chimes, get you a porch goose, okay? And sprinkle your little objects there, you'll be fine. Both the French loup-garou and the Cajun rougarou, they share these themes of transformation, curses, also oddly enough, moral lessons because they punish people that are not following in God's way. Okay, but apparently you get the curse by not following God's way. So a little bit of a contradiction. Kind of weird that we're making up these laws, mostly for women to follow, since a lot of the rougarous, at least mentioned in the lore, like were men. So like, okay, men get to break these laws and they get superpowers, but when we do it, we're going to hell. Okay. So yeah. Some other modern like interpretations, contemporary views on lycanthropy also often romanticize and humanize the werewolves, focusing on their struggle with like their identity, the nature of transformation, seeing this transformation as a physical act, while others can view it as a psychological act, like with the lunar possession. I think we could also have a conversation here about like our tradcraft view of fetch spirits, where witches, we pull our fetch out of our body and we shape shift and turn into an animal in the astral and take on the form of that animal to attend the Sabbath. I think that could really be seen with some similarities of lycanthropy for us as trad witches. And the trigger of this being the full moon, a common trigger in a lot of Western lore of like the full moon happens and you shapeshift. Taking this back to tradcraft, also when we honor our Esbats and attend the Sabbath, is it so much that the moon is full? So we're being like involuntarily forced to take on the skin of our fetch and attend the Sabbath? No, like we're choosing to because like we're grown. We can make that decision for ourselves. Hello. And then the moral implications, undertones, sometimes can vary between it being a curse for wrongdoing, while others might view it as a natural or even like a boon from like a spirit or a god. So part of my quest was like writing a poem inspired by some of this. I first want to say that there is a French folk song that is linked in the document. I'm not going to play it on this video because I'm sure we'll get a copyright strike or something. But it's Je vais le loup. And it's a song. I'm going to read you the lyrics here. I saw the wolf, the fox, and the hare. I saw the wolf, the fox drinking. I spied on them myself. I saw the wolf, the fox, and the hare. I spied on them myself. I saw the wolf and the fox drinking. I heard the wolf, the fox, and the hare. I heard the wolf, the fox singing. I imitated them myself. I heard the wolf, the fox, and the hare. I imitated them myself. I heard the wolf and the fox singing. I saw the wolf, the fox, and the hare. I saw the wolf, the fox dancing. I made them dance myself. I saw the wolf, the fox, and the hare. I made them dance myself. I saw the wolf and the fox dancing. That's the song. Really sick beat. This to me, how if you ever listen to like, let's say you're listening, to the radio or a Pandora station, if people even still do that, I'm such a geriatric millennial that I still have a Pandora.
A medieval version of WAP.
Hello. But when you listen to something and it makes like almost like your witch blood sort of tingle, where you're like, ooh, this feels like there's magic in this. That's how I feel about this song. So I would be really interested if anyone else listens to it. From what I've looked here, this appears to be a folkloric French song that does have some witchery involved in the lyrics in terms of kind of like fetch spirits, like taking on the form of an animal, but also bewitching animals to like do your bidding. That's an art that I'm still trying to study right now.
I see all of those animals as being related to crossing the hedge. So just
the wolf, the fox, and the hare. Yeah. And I could see all of them also having like kind of trickster qualities as well, because like you have the association of like the cunning fox, the mad hare, and the big bad wolf. They're all kind of villain coded in a way, very filled with like riddles and tricks. And so then my poem, under the silver glow of the full moon's light, I stand alone in the quiet night, with arms outstretched to the celestial sphere. I summon the wolf spirit, drawing him near. Okay. Eyes closed, I feel a primal force, a connection forged, a timeless course. In the stillness, the lichen arises, a guardian of the wood, full of surprises. Its presence, a blend of strength and grace, guides me through the shadows and in between space. Together we howl a harmonious boon, echoing beneath the witch's moon. In this feral dance of souls so wild and free, I embrace the wolf spirit as he engulfs me. Period. You know what I'm saying? Okay, and the last thing I'm going to add here, and I won't say too much about this because this might be a little bit fourth power, but one of my most fond Coven memories is being out in the wood with the witches and howling in the middle of the night with other witches. And there were, party supplies involved in this that also made it inherently very liminal. But that experience of howling in those woods, I can only hope, you know what I mean, that some nearby campers or people in the area heard that, and that it either struck fear deep in their heart immediately and they thought they heard a no you didn't out in those woods, because I would just be so honored if I could have played a part in that, or B, it brought a smile across their face, because I know if it was me and I heard multiple voices that sounded like they were trying to imitate wolves, but let's be honest, I don't think any of us are necessarily voice actors. That would have made me kind of chuckle, and I probably would have howled back, Maybe. I don't know. I guess it depends on the mood that I'm in. But yeah, that's my lycanthropy. Thank you all so much for coming to my TED Talk. Yeah.
Great. Loved it. Honestly, the woof, I can't say woof. I have to say WOOF. I'm sorry. Please don't judge me for how I say wolf. Woof, woof. But anyways, the woof is related in Italian folklore, I believe, as like there's a wolf king and a stag king, kind of like an oak king and holly king. So the wolf's always been kind of on the darker underworld side, whereas I wonder what would be on the lighter side for the French.
Yeah, maybe, like
I don't know.
Yeah, I could see a stag, like when I think of the stag and like the full moon, because I've seen so many art depictions of course, wolves with the moon, but I've also seen like a lot of stag depictions with the moon. It also kind of gives me like a little bit of a Goda otherworldly vibe of like the white stag in the woods and like the associations of the fairy folk sort of vibe, which interestingly are also very deeply interwoven within a lot of French lore of like these fairy folk. So yeah, it's been a fun journey. I would be very interested in doing a little weaving, if you will, with the wolf and stag king. I personally would like to learn more about that. I think that would be a fun thread for us to maybe weave with.
I love working with Persephone. I forgot to mention how I loved working with her, not only because, our coven works with her, but because like with my Southern Italian ancestry, like Greek mythology was used with that Italian aspect of my side of my family. So I don't know. It's just like connecting back to my blood, and you're connecting back to your blood with your French lichen stuff,
Well, yeah, thank you all so much for being here. I guess we will wrap this up. This was fun. I look forward to our next collab. I have no idea what our topic is. I don't even remember if we've already picked or not. So if you have any suggestions that you would like the Circle City Witches to cover, feel free to leave them down below. And until next
Please leave ideas.
Yes. Yes. And share this video if you know, with a friend, give us a like, subscribe to the channel, do all them things. And yeah, until next time, blessed be witches, and we will see you in hell.
Abby the Witch here, and I'm here to offer my response to episode 3, part 2. My response to these lovely ladies and what they had to say. So I really liked doing this episode. Maybe it's just because spring is my favorite time of year, but I feel like we really got into it with this episode. We really dug in and we didn't hold back. And yeah, I'm into it. So first of all, I'm going to respond to what Core had to say. I had no idea that daffodils could be pink. No idea. That sounds adorable. I would love to see some baby pink daffodils. That sounds so fucking cute. Pink is my favorite color. I would love to see that. I love baby pink for the springtime. Any pastels really, right? I really like baby blue for the springtime. I feel like that color is kind of slept on for this time of year. I love baby blue. I don't know what it is. If it reminds me of like the light returning, so you see like the bright blue sky. Like I don't know what it is. I don't know, but I really like baby blue. Baby pink is also a great color for this time of year for me. Okay, she then went on to talk about the core Persephone mythology. To me, and this is obvious, but the main thing that I think of with core Persephone, with the core Persephone story, is the light and dark half of the year, right? It's broken up into these two like kind of halves. The light and dark half, breaking the year up like that, to me is that's what I focus on when it comes to like working with the shift in seasons and working with kind of the cycle of the earth and nature and everything. That's like the main thing that I focus on in my practice. I still look at the Sabbats and I still honor the Sabbats, absolutely. But I mostly look at like equinoxes, solstices, and really just like the two halves, like the dark and light half of the year. I'm going to get kind of more into why I kind of have a problem with this sort of the most popular wheel of the year that people look at. I don't have a problem with it, but it just, I'll get into that. I'll get into that in a little bit. Moving forward with the core, Persephone core story. Yeah, I've heard lots of different interpretations. I've heard that she was abducted and Hades did force himself on her and yada, yada. I have heard that she went willingly and sort of used it as this like way of empowering herself. Same with leaving the underworld also. Like, yes, there's this idea that she ate the pomegranate seeds and she didn't have a choice. She had to stay down there for half of the year or whatever. But I've also heard that she wanted to stay down there, not necessarily because she was in love with Hades. I've heard that too. But I've also heard that she wanted to stay down there because she wanted that power. She wanted to be the queen of the underworld. She was sick of being this virtuous maiden, right? And she had to be like the perfect girl or whatever. And she used it as an opportunity to be like, yes, now is my chance to finally have power and to step into myself and find my power within me. And she embraced this idea of becoming queen of the underworld. I don't know which one I believe. Of course, I would like to think that she went willingly and decided to stay for half of the year willingly. But I don't know. It's, there's different interpretations. There's obviously none of us were there. None of us are the ancient Greeks. That little book you have called Austera it does look cute. It looks like, and that's cool that there's like a whole set. I'll maybe look into that. Maybe. Yeah, I really liked that they pointed out that as witches, a lot of us are always seeking this idea of balance, right? And trying to obtain balance and preaching about how balance is so important. And it is important. Now, that being said, I really liked that they pointed out that balance isn't always there. Balance isn't always easy to obtain. Balance isn't always perfect. Balance of two things is almost never there. And I was like, whoa, like, it's kind of true. You know, we talk about like, you need balance. And it's like, okay, well, you know, you think about balance, you think of like a scale and it's like perfectly equal, right? Like each side is equal. But in life, in reality, like, does that actually ever happen? You know? To me, finding balance in life is kind of going, instead of balance, like at the same time, it's almost like going back and forth. It's like, okay, you were over here for a while, now let's go over here. You know what I mean? Like you've been, like, for example, right now, it's like, I've been so active, like doing all of these workings, and I've been very busy at my altar, and I've been doing this spell, and I've been working on conjuring this spirit, and I've been working on, and it's like, it's very exhausting. So now I'm slowing down and I'm just kind of like reading some books, right? I decided that for myself, but the devil has also told me, and my sacred mother has also told me, that you need to slow down and you need to just kind of like watch some videos, read some books, right? Like go back to that knowledge is power aspect of the craft, right? Okay, so I want to, like I said, I want to really get into and talk about how I feel about things like Ostera, calling the spring equinox Ostera, and this sort of very popular wheel of the year. First of all, this very popular wheel of the year is Wiccan, right? I'm sure we all know that. I have a problem with it because all of the Sabbats within that wheel are all Western European. And there's nothing wrong with exploring, like if you have ancestors or ancestry that's rooted in Western Europe or whatever. There's nothing wrong with being curious about that. There's nothing wrong with celebrating how they did. There's nothing wrong with that. But what about the rest of the world? And why did you cherry pick from different cultures? Like, that's the thing too. They cherry picked from different cultures and they decided to name the spring equinox Ostera. So now I feel like, I really feel like some of these other witches really think that Ostera is just like this general term or label for the spring equinox. And it's not. It's a specific name from a specific culture, right? Again, fine. That's totally fine. I don't know. I would rather call it the spring equinox. That feels more natural to me. As a trad witch, as a folk witch who's very connected to the land, who's very connected to like kind of the agricultural shifts of the land I live on, calling it something more general like the spring equinox or, oh, it's springtime, moving with the shifts of the seasons, and something instead of something really big and really specific like Ostera. I don't know. It feels more folk to me to call it the spring equinox. I hope that makes sense. I don't know. It makes sense to me. I don't know. So I don't know. I would encourage people to sort of, if you do look at the wheel of the year, like I said, I kind of honor just more like the dark and light half and the solstices and equinoxes and but if you are someone who looks at the wheel of the year, I would encourage you to maybe make your own wheel of the year. Maybe you're in an area of the world that doesn't even have fucking 4 seasons. You know? Maybe you're in an area of the world where spring doesn't start until like fucking June, like Alaska or up in the other parts of the Arctic Circle. I don't know. Or look at your ancestry. How did they do it? right? That's one way of doing it too. So yeah, anyway, that's how I feel about the wheel bit. This very popular go-to wheel gear. And it's handy. Don't get me wrong. There's nothing wrong with working with it. I'm not saying that. It's very handy. It's there. Some people just use it. Some people like know all these things. They don't have a problem with it and they just use it. And that's fine. I just feel like there might be some people who haven't reflected on it. And I don't know. I'll shut up. Moving on to what Jasmine said, werewolves. Werewolves have a special place in my heart. I love the different lores of werewolves. I used to think back in the day, I've always have had like a connection to canine, right? And I used to think back in the day that maybe I'm some sort of like werewolf descendants. Maybe I'm actually like the true version of werewolf isn't like what we hear in the stories. Maybe it's actually like a much more like subdued version of like people who have like these canine like features, like a strong sense of smell, hairy parts on their body, you know. But what I actually really realize and understand now is that I actually, my fetch spirit is a wolf. And that's that connection that I feel. I actually had a dream. I love sharing this dream. My first pregnancy, I was thinking about what to name my child. And I loved the idea of naming my child Wolf. Wolfie. And my husband was like, well, I don't know. That's pretty unique. And I was like, well, I don't know either. But I had a dream. That I was like trying to decide what her name should be. And I was like pulling oracle cards in my dream. And I got the wolf. And all of a sudden, this dark goddess showed up. And I now know that was probably a face of Lilith or Colio. And Colio said that you are a wolf. You are a wolf. And I turned into a wolf. I shifted and transformed into a wolf in my dream. And at my side, there was a wolf pup. We were two black wolves. So I know I have some sort of connection to wolves, and I know my fetch spirit is also a wolf now. I know that now. I really associate werewolves too with gender queerness and also like transitioning, right? Like this transition, this shift from one to another. I specifically associate it with like more mask gender queerness. Not that wolves can't be like this fearsome, feminine, dark feminine rage, right? I also associate it with that. But there's something about wolves and werewolves in particular that I associate with like masculinity. But shifting back and forth for me is big because I'm gender fluid. So shifting from like this divine masculine to this divine feminine form. Yeah, I really associate it with that. Okay, moving on to the skin dancers. I taught on the Navajo Nation as a student teacher for a while before I moved to Alaska. And they talked about skin dancers there. And it is something that they do not take lightly. They take it very seriously. It obviously depends on the person, but especially the more traditional elders take it very seriously. And you do not say their name. This idea of morphing into a hyena seems really fucking cool to me because I don't know if you guys know this or not. I feel like most people do at this point, but female hyenas have a pseudo penis. Yeah, that would be dope. Like transitioning to my masculine form and having a pseudo penis would be keeping items on your porch is weird. Like where did I mean, it's quirky and cool. I like it. And like that number of 13, of course, as a tri witch. I love that. But where did they get that? Why does that? I get the, I think it was called a boohag. I get the like, oh, she has to count every individual grain of rice, and like that gives you time to like, I don't know. But so he has to like stop counting. He's like, oh well, and turns around and goes away. I don't know. That's very strange and interesting. I want to end this by saying, Jasmine, your poem was absolutely beautiful and very powerful and very like, yeah, I loved it. Well done. Well done. Both of you, Core, well done. Yeah, I love doing these. And yes, like Jasmine and Core said, please, please, please leave us ideas. I feel like this episode, again, this was like a very fun episode to make for me, but I feel like we kind of veered away a little bit from like tying it back to Midwest. We did a little bit. We did a little bit with like the dog face bridge and some other things. I would love to like focus our next episode on like specifically Midwest or Indiana, whatever, like whether it be folklore or maybe there's different cool like witchy spots we could go to and research and then do an episode on that. Like that could be cool. I don't know. What would you guys like to see? I would love to really tie it back to more Midwestern, specifically Indiana, if possible. So yeah, that's all I have to say, guys. And until next time, I hope you stay very well. Don't forget to follow the snake, and I will see you in hell. Bye.